Hello and welcome to the session. In today's session, we'll be discussing about my computer. And my computer, this particular video actually consists of two parts. In the first part, we'll be discussing about the hardware. And in the next part, we'll be discussing about the software of the software components of the computer. What are the learning objectives of this particular session? Well, in this particular session, I'll try to define what a personal computer is, and then we'll be explaining about different hardware components of a computer system. So with these two things, we will be trying to cover this particular session. So what is a personal computer? Well, a personal computer, which we also know as PC, is a general purpose computer used for performing applications on data. Suppose you want to do some word processing, you require a personal computer. Suppose you want to do some spreadsheet related stuff, you require a personal computer. You want to do basic machine learning you want to run basic machine learning algorithm on computer, you require your personal computer for that, because that is where you are collecting the stuff and running it over there. You're not utilizing companies' high-end machinery for such purposes. Your day-to-day purpose at home, at your office, you may be requiring personal computer for various applications, including connectivity. It can accept data as input, perform operations on that data, and generate the desired output for the user. So basically, applications take the input, produces some kind of output, and it can also be a part of network of computers. So these are some of the things which you would like to do with your personal computer. Well, if I want to define different types of personal computers, there can be different categories. And the topmost category, it is not a server, remember that, right? The servers are what we use for high-end computing, and they are primarily for networking, web-based applications and so on, and installing World Wide Web and so on and so forth, and many, many more applications. So as far as personal computers are concerned, they start with their topmost personal computer is a workstation. Well, a workstation is a high-performance computer that is used for scientific and technical tasks. You might be requiring such kind of thing at your end, okay? And many a times you use Unix and Windows NT kind of operating systems. Now NT is being, it's the Windows network operating system was there. So you normally use Unix kind of operating system or other kind of things for this kind of a thing. However, most of the time when you require a personal computer or my computer for your home, or for your office, then it is a slightly low-end computer. You normally don't use Unix operating system on that particular computer. And this is such a computer, workstation is such a computer that it can be connected to different forms, different LANs, and maybe WAN or that kind of a thing. Okay. Now, when it comes to a desktop computer, that is where we normally recognize our personal computer to be. Even a workstation is also a personal computer because it is present onto your desktop. All right. But desktop computer is primarily, if you look at the figure, so it is somewhere you have a box which contains the CPU and other things, a monitor, separate monitor, a keyboard, a mouse, all these kinds of are the basic devices, and maybe a printer can be attached to this particular whole thing. So this is known as personal computer, and Microsoft Windows, Linux, Mac OS are the usual operating systems which you employ on this machine. And this is used for day-to-day computational and internet communication oriented tasks. Now, day-to-day computations may be even programming, right? So suppose you are learning to program. once again, you may be using this kind of a computer. Or this can be a part of bigger network where you are doing programming through, nowadays, maybe through cloud computing or whatever kind of features which you may be using. So personal computer has become more and more important every day. Okay. Then comes the laptop and notebook. Okay. Now laptop and notebook, basically laptop is just a smaller personal computer which is portable also, and it has inbuilt battery backup for power supply, which is very useful because it can the battery backup can last for 2 to 3 hours, and you can work at different places with your laptop. However, there is a disadvantage associated with laptops, is that since it's a very compact box and everything is placed inside it, so there are limited upgradability as compared to desktop is concerned. So although it is limited upgradability, but it is very useful, and normally since it is all sealed, right, so it lasts for a longer duration in general, and quite robust in that way because it is designed that way to be robust. Then comes a very interesting kind of personal computer, which is called netbook. It started with the concept of that since internet is applicable to everyone. We all are using internet or so. So what about applications are there onto some cloud, right? And you are using that particular facility. Suppose Windows 365, etc. you are utilizing, and you are utilizing it online, right, rather than loading it onto your computer, then netbook can be a good choice. However, they are very small, very cheap also in a sense, but nowadays their applications are quite limited, so they are being dropped from this particular, you won't find them, you will find them, but then normally they are not very popular. And they are also used for general purpose computing. They can run some smaller applications. However, they have limited capabilities in most of the places. And primarily for utilizing browser or browser related services through which you can run different applications. So it has to be a powerful browser so that it can be used for different kinds of application. And finally, we have a tablet. Nowadays people are working with tablets, right, which are portable devices having a touch screen, and then you can have light pen kind of a thing which you can use as input, and they are also many times coupled with the global positioning system and so on and so forth. So tablets work as a sort of your mobiles, a slight extension of your mobiles these days. However, they allow you to do faster input of information. However, with the advent of voice-based interfaces, you are able to do all these activities even in a mobile also, right? So faster input is available even in mobiles. So the roles are getting reversed, but definitely the definition always exists over there. Now, one of the important things when we want to define about a personal computer, I would like to know what is a configuration. Obviously, when we are talking about a personal computer, it should have a processor, right? Because without processor, the things are not going to work. In addition, it should have some input-output devices, right? So input-output in the sense that you have a monitor, obviously that monitor is part of that particular device. You have a keyboard, right? Even if it is a laptop, you have to have some kind of input. And many a times you buy some additional devices like printer, which can be coupled with your personal computer, and definitely internet like networking cards and etc., which are fitted into the personal computer so that you can communicate with the network service provider and you are able to use these kinds of things. So, but what is configuration means? Configuration means the technical specification of a computer. Okay, so in general, you should identify main applications of a computer to define speed and the type of the processor, size of the RAM and cache, size of the hard disk drive and SSD, and requirements for graphic processors, etc. Now, what are these things? Suppose you have to do high-end machine learning, okay, using your computer. So you require a fairly good processors. These days, most popular processors category which are there are basically I series processors of Intel and related processors in other categories in AMD and all those Ryzen and all those kinds of things. It's like i3, i5, i7 and i9 kind of processor. And then there are generations of these processors which are available to us, right? So obviously we are looking forward to, if I'm requiring quite powerful system, if I require gaming kind of a situation, and gaming which I don't recommend these days, but anyway, gaming is part and parcels of utilization of computers, quite a powerful thing for as far as entertainment is concerned. As far as these things are concerned, you will require powerful graphical processors also coupled with that particular computer. What about RAM? You require higher version of RAM. So obviously, whenever you require additional thing in your computer, the cost also goes up. All right. Anyway, this is how it is. Then there is a very interesting statement being made over there: hard disk versus SSD. All right. Now, solid state devices basically these days are very SSD disks are becoming more and more popular these days. These disks are somewhat, they don't have any magnetic rotating components. Okay. And because they do not have rotating components, their speeds are slightly higher than the hard disk. But once again, the cost is prohibitive. Although the cost is now gradually coming down, still they are costlier than the hard disk. So that is where you need to decide. Okay, so whether you require SSD or you will be requiring hard disk in your computer, and how much RAM. Decision on RAM is very critical. So suppose you got to use your computer for multiple applications, right? You will be requiring good amount of RAM for that particular purpose. Okay, so these are some of the things which you have to consider. Basically, your applications, they determine that what kind of configuration of PC you would like to do. So how to find the configuration of your PC? Suppose you have a PC at your home. Okay, now the older way used to be right click on my computer icon, select properties and go to general tab. So this was the older version of Windows which you had. You could do that. But this kind of a thing will give you basic information. If you want detailed configuration these days, you use Task Manager. So Task Manager is very useful when you on a Windows computer, you press Control Alt Delete together. Okay, that is the time it will ask you to go to Task Manager. So over there, Task Manager shows how many processes are running. So you can go for the performance section and look into the details over there. And that is where you will find or you will be able to see what are the basic configuration of your processor, how much RAM, etc. it is there, how much of that being utilized, so efficiency and the performance is being covered in that particular place. So that is a very useful way of finding information about your computer system which you have bought. But normally when we go to market, what kind of things are made available as far as configuration is concerned, as far as we are concerned? Well, let's try to look into different aspects as far as configuration of a computer is concerned. Well, the very first thing when we look at processor, you will find 13th generation. This is a very low end as far as low end thing is concerned, like low end processor is concerned. Okay. So i3 processor or i5, i7, i9. i9 is just workstation oriented. i7 and i9 are workstation oriented. But i3 and i5 you will be requiring as far as for general purpose personal computer at your home itself. Okay, so this is something 13 generation now, there may be 14 generations, naturally it will be coming. There are some improvement in the data parts, in the way it communicates, all these kinds of things are there. But in addition to that, you will find 2 or 3 terms, L1 cache, L2 caches, and some of the processor also have L3 cache. Recent processor, most of these processors have L3 cache also. And what you see, the cache memory over here is 480 KB only, L1 cache in a typical processor. This is a real processor, right? And it was an i5 processor. It still has just 480 KB. Will it work? Well, the purpose of L1, L2 and L3 caches are very well defined these days. L1 cache is within the processor and it is a very small cache. It may be separate for instructions and separate for data. These days I cache as well as D cache may be separate within the processor, and it is very, very fast, just slightly slower than the actual processor. L2 cache may be on the, outside, slightly outside of your processor, okay, and it is, you see, 8 MB or kind of a stuff, okay. Now, L3 cache is there, and these days, if you find there are many cores of a processor. A processor, if you talk about i5 processor, it has 4 cores, 6 cores, 8 cores, and even more, right? Now, what are these cores? If I take very simple kind of approach here, a core is, if it's like multiple processors are there on the same chip, processor chip today. Earlier, it was just a microprocessor. That was a great achievement. We had at that point of time, we had VLSI kind of technology. But it is the era of ULSI++. Okay, so at this particular situation, we have multiple cores can be fabricated onto a single chip. So technically, if you say it's a multiprocessor system, a single i5 processor is a multiprocessor for you because it is having 6 cores, and each of these cores is a separate CPU or processing unit. Okay, so that can run very, very fast different kinds of program. All right, so these are the capabilities which exist in today's processor. And there are logical processors. Logical processors are that they can further upgrade that onto a single processor. 2 threads can run simultaneously together. Threads are basically, you can say that suppose you are running one particular application, 2 different parts of that particular application can run onto that particular processor. Okay, and on a particular core. So there are 12 simultaneously applications which may be run, 6 simultaneous applications with 12 possible logical processors may be running onto your computer, enhancing its speed to a great extent. In addition to that, you will find there is something called 2.5 gigahertz. Now, this particular thing relates to the clock speed, and this clock speed nowadays, although 2.5 is quite a substantial clock speed, but this is basically today, if you talk about RISC processor, reduced instruction set computer processors, then it is equal to 1 instruction execution. Time taken, 1 upon this is the time taken to execute one instruction. But don't worry about it. 2.5 is a good clock speed, although different processor type may have different clock speeds, and you cannot compare processors of different brand. For example, if it is related to M1 chip of any that is Apple, then you cannot compare to Apple 2.5 gigahertz because they have entirely different way of instruction set, and how many instructions will be executed in one clock pulse is determined by that particular thing. Then you have, obviously you have operating system associated with every processor, because without operating system your computer is not going to be user friendly. You cannot operate your computer, right? Because you want user interface, good user interface, and the job of operating system is to manage all the hardware component, and we will talk about the operating system related stuff in the next session. Okay, then display. Now today if you are talking about laptops, 15.6 is normal display, right? You can have smaller laptops also, but for better you can have 15.6 if you want, if you are working quite a lot onto computer. Okay, if you are working onto a desktop computer, you can have even 19-inch display, you can have 21 inches display. Today you can have even 24-inch display. So you have lot many kinds of the higher definition displays. Then the refresh rate is very, very important when you are talking. Refresh rate basically refreshes the screen, and it is very, very important for you. The higher the refresh rate, the lesser harmful it is going to be for your eyes, and there are anti-glare. Then there may be video card, or with or without video card. Now video card basically contains the graphical processor unit. Okay, so that is where if graphical processing unit is required, then you can go in for the separate video card, which may be NVIDIA or any kind of video card with the related stuff. Then the most important other thing is the memory. 8 GB is what I recommend these days because of the so many applications you can run. So 8 GB, around 4 GB may be required, even by 2 to 4 GB is required by your operating system. So it may be a good idea to go for 8 GB or even 16 GB of RAM. And the one which I have shown you is, it has just one card of 8 GB RAM, where double data rate, DDR, they call it DDR4 RAM, okay, double data rate, it's faster than earlier RAMs, so you can use just one single card. Now what is this one card? I'll just talk about. Okay, then comes the storage. Storage can be in the vicinity of something like 1 terabyte, okay, where hard disk is possible today. But anyway, you can go in for smaller disks, and 256 GB SSDs are good enough. People go in for 512 or that related SSDs in a sense. In addition to that, there are a number of other components when we go for our configuration. They are the main components, but other components may be ports. So you require USB port, like A port, Type-C port for charging and all, USB 2.0 port, which is for older USBs which you are utilizing. Cameras you require, right? So you can have like widescreen camera, full high definition webcam with microphone, right? Then audio speaker you can have of around 4 watt overall capacity, which can be stereo speakers with that these days. Wireless and network card are very, very important for communication, and the power, and that is battery and power backup. So these basically, all these things put together forms the basic configuration of your personal computer. One very important component of your personal computer happens to be the motherboard. All right. And most of you, since are engineers, so you would like to know, most important component of the computer, also known as system board, main board, allows parts of the computer to receive power, communicate with one another. I'll just try to show the motherboard to you. Now, what you see here, okay, this is typically a fan. So it's a cooling fan. And below that, you can see the protrusions are there, right? These are the heat sinks. And just below that is your actual processor, which we were talking about, the cores and all that, the processor having multiple cores. So this is basically the more are the cores, the more are the processing power of that particular processor, the easier it is to get heated up. right? So if a processor get heated up, you require strong cooling system onto that particular processor, and there are other heat sinks are also available over here. Okay, then what you can see, we were talking about RAM cards, 1 into DDR RAM card, right? So here is I can remove this particular thing now. I think you can see the RAM card more clearly. Okay, so can you see these two cards, right? So this is actually 2 RAM cards. All right, it may not be DDR, but then I can remove them easily. I can plug them once again. All right, so this is basically that one DDR we talked about, right? So in our case, in this particular machine, we have 2 such cards. So the overall memory may be, it may not be 8 GB, it may be smaller. So maybe it is smaller that way. Then what you see here at this point, these are the connectors for your SSD or hard disk. These are for additional craft. Suppose you have a Wi-Fi card, you can put them here. Okay, and this is for, suppose you want to put additional network or graphics card, you can put them, some cards can be attached over here. What you see is just small batteries available over here, okay, which basically gives backup to your, what we have is the ROM chip, which is available somewhere over here. This is your controller card, right? Input-output controller card. This is already fitted. This is the chip which controls your input, that is the hard disk, this basically PCI and all those things. So, and these are all the connectors, what you see here over here. So these connectors actually are attached from inside to all these components and so on and so forth. Okay, so this basically, if you see, this is what is your personal computer stuff, which is available to you, right? And what you are doing is actually, without using operating system, you won't be able to utilize the basics of it. So this is what I wanted to talk about in this session. So let us summarize what we have discussed. We have different types of personal computers like workstation, desktop computers, laptops, notebook, tablet, PC, etc. And we have discussed about a typical configuration of a personal computer. And we have seen the most important part where everything is fitted in. It's the motherboard of a computer. On the next session, we'll talk about the software components of PC. With this, we end this particular session. Thank you for being with us.